something to see.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of Project Shadow. My name's Charlie. You might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset. And today, I know I'm like the last person to do these things, but you know, our theater doesn't hold movies very long, and it's very painful to get to, so I don't know if then go out to the theater, so I have to wait until they're available to rent. But I don't know why I'm like stretching this out, because you probably saw the name of the episode. Yeah, finally got to watch Into the Spider-Verse, and I want to talk about it, even though everybody has already talked about it. I want to talk about it because I am in love. This was such a good movie, and I really just want to throw my 2 cents out there. So, hi. Okay, before we get started, I have a few things that I want to just get out of the way as far as announcements go. I have started recording the audio for a new podcast that will be coming out separate to this one. It's going to be a free audiobook version of the first Mask of the Gods book, Crucify My Love. I started recording the audio today, and I hope I get a bit faster at it, because I was afraid of feeling bogged down in doing it, so I'm recording each section of the book and then going through and editing the audio and kind of working my way through that way. I got 1 chapter done today. I'm hoping to start getting more than 1 chapter done a day. I will definitely let you know when the podcast is about to start coming out, because I'm very excited about it, and I hope you like it as much as I do. So, but it will be a separate podcast, and I will probably be talking about it on this podcast. So the actual audiobook will be coming out at the Crucify My Love podcast, and I'll be doing like probably once a week a commentary on the episode that came out over there. You know, so just so you know, that's going to be happening in the not too distant future. So the first thing that I have to say is the cast blew me away. One, I forgot what it was like to enjoy Nicolas Cage in something unironically. Like, not because he was just so crazy, over the top, bizarre in the thing that he was doing. And that was an oddly good feeling, and I really enjoyed that. As I talk about some of the other actors, I want to apologize ahead of time, because names and I are not necessarily, the best at pronunciation. So I'm sorry, and I apologize to anybody whose name I mispronounce. Okay, so Miles Morales is played by Shameik Moore, who I am so excited to see what this guy's career is going to be like. I have enjoyed so much with him in it. He played Malcolm in Dope, and if you haven't seen Dope, you need to see Dope. It's a fun movie that is oddly serious, but in a way that doesn't like break it. It's really funny, and I don't know. It's a good movie. Definitely go see it. If you're not familiar with it, Andre over on Black Nerd Comedy did a great review of it, so just search for that review, and that'll give you an idea if it's the kind of film that you want to watch. That's what talked me into watching it, and I fell in love with the movie. It's really good. But he also played Shaolin Fantastic on The Get Down. And if you've never seen The Get Down, it is an experience in and of itself. It's available on Netflix. How can I even try to explain this? I think the easiest way to say it is it's Baz Luhrmann's version of the origin of hip hop and some disco stuff. I loved the show. I watched both seasons of it. I wish it would have gotten a third season, if for no other reason to round out the story a bit more. But it was a good show. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and Shaolin was such a good character in there. So I'm very excited to see him in here. And according to IMDb, he's going to be in a TV series about the Wu-Tang Clan, but it doesn't say who he's playing. So I'm kind of interested about that too. The biggest surprise for me is Jake Johnson does the voice of Peter Parker. And I cannot think of anything that I enjoyed him in. Now, I don't mean that in like that he was in something and I didn't like it because he was in it. I'm just saying I've never really enjoyed him as an actor. I'm kind of going through stuff right now, looking at his IMDb to see. And, oh, he was in Jurassic World. I forgot about that. I kind of like Jurassic. Okay, it's got dinosaurs in it, so I'm a bad person like that. And he was in the Lego movie. He was Barry in the Lego movie. Okay. So a couple things, but again, he didn't stand out for me in any of those roles. Rather enjoyed him as Peter Parker. Haley Seinfeld. I can't wait to see Bumblebee now because of this. Pitch Perfect 3. Well, the Pitch Perfect movies I did enjoy. And yeah, that's pretty much the only other things with her in it that I think I've seen. So, yeah. Okay. I enjoyed her Gwen Stacy a lot. Mahershala Ali, I can't say enough good things about Mahershala Ali. And yeah, I'm not going to get into the Oscar thing because that's not what I do. But trust me, I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. But that's not what I'm going to do. Now, I felt going into this movie that I could not possibly like it. Because having not been able to go see it, I had been inundated by the hype. All of the reviews and everything talking about how good this movie was. Bob Chipman said that it was the best Spider-Man movie that he had ever seen, and possibly the best superhero movie he had ever seen. And then it won the Oscar for Best Animated Film, and I don't put a lot of stock in that, but that just kind of added to the hype feeling that I had for it. And so I was actually expecting to be let down by the film just because, my expectations were so high. The bar was so high for this movie. All the reviewers that I respect had nothing but glowing things to say about it. I just didn't think it could live up to my own expectations of the film. And that is a terrible thing that we do to ourselves. But, I had prepared myself for that, and I said that to Brian before we watched it. And then somehow it found a way to actually exceed my expectations. Now, I don't know if I would go in with Bob Chipman's the best superhero movie I've ever seen. And that's just because I have weird soft spots in my heart for, like, the Tim Burton Batman movies that are still kind of my favorite superhero movies, but that's probably just a lot of nostalgia. Like, they came out at just the right time when I was just the right age, and I really love Batman, so it's hard for anything to kick them out of the top seat for me. But I will say, if I can do the horrible thing of creating a secondary category, I will say it's probably the best comic book movie I've ever seen. And it made me question why I've never seen a comic book movie do comic book movies this good. Because, because I wouldn't actually call like the Tim Burton Batman movies comic book movies, because they're not. They're what if Tim Burton did a Batman movie back when he was still doing good movies and whatnot. So, they're not comic book movies, if you will. This was a comic book movie through and through, and the things that should have broken it are the things that actually made it better, like the whole stupid, every time they introduced a new Spider-Man, you saw them throw down issue 1 of their comic book and go through their origin story. That should have broken the movie, because they do it initially with Peter Parker, and then we meet a whole bunch of Spider-Men and women and woman all at once, and we go through just rapid fire each and every one of them and their origin stories, and it shouldn't have worked. Like, I just sit back and I think about how do you construct that as a writer? How do you put that together in a film? But it was so funny, and it was so lighthearted, and it fit so well. And the comic book styling of the movie, with the various, intensity marks and everything that they use to show the differences in feeling. I love the little marks that appeared just like in the comic book when the Spidey sense went off. That was awesome. It just, I don't know. I'm not going to say I didn't know that you could do comic book movies, because Scott Pilgrim versus the World, or is it the universe? I always get that wrong. The Scott Pilgrim movie, to me, kind of stood out as one of the best comic book movies, because it felt like a comic book that I was watching. And they did that very intentionally with, the writing on the screen and, the very stylized action sequences and whatnot. And it made me, when I watched Scott Pilgrim, when my friend came over and showed me that movie, because I had completely missed it. It was not on my radar. And a friend of mine came over and made me watch that movie. It made me question why no one had really comic booked a comic book movie like that before. And Into the Spider-Verse did the same thing. Like, I've seen a lot of animated superhero movies, and I feel like I have to say it that way because DC Comics does a lot of animated superhero movies, and I don't know, I may just be, a fan of their work, and that's blinding me, but for the most part, they've been pretty good over the years. Some are better than others, but, none of them really stood out to me as real stinkers in the way that the live action movies did. But they're not comic book movies, they're animated movies. This was an actual comic book movie, and it worked. Like, it looked like a comic book come to life. The way they colored everything, the way they structured the animation, the way they framed everything, just all the way through. It worked. And I'm stunned and amazed that they were able to pull that off. And I've heard other reviewers kind of talk about that, but I don't think that it gets enough credit for that, because the story's really good, and the voice acting is really good, and the music is really good and punctuates the story well. But the visuals, and this is a movie. There's some movies that you could kind of close your eyes and the acting is so good that it's still a good movie. You know what I'm saying? But the visuals added so much to it, and yet it was so comic booky all the way through. Now, my big question is that because Lord and Miller were involved, because they've also pulled off the Lego Movie, which is a movie that on so many levels shouldn't have worked, and that's just their special knack? Or is this something that can strike lightning again? You know, if they decided to do a Ghost Spider movie, which I want them to do so bad, please, please, please do that. Especially with this cast, like bring same Gwen Stacy back. I just continue. You know, let this be an origin movie. Let this movie be the Avengers in reverse. So instead of a whole bunch of solo films that then launched the Avengers, this is the Avengers movie that launches a bunch of solo films. Because I would probably I probably wouldn't watch a Spider-Ham movie. There is a Spider-Ham short included with it. And yeah, it was what it was. But I would watch a Spider-Noir movie. I would watch more Miles Morales movies. I've been shocked that they haven't given Miles the time of day, and finally they did. And I would watch definitely a Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, whatever you want to call her, movie. I don't want to call her Spider-Woman. That's a different character. And I like the term Ghost Spider, and I'm hoping that they go with that. But there's so much good stuff to talk about. I can't get over how much I loved this movie. And it did the things that are really hard to do. It found a way to make Kingpin relatable in much the same way that Daredevil Season 1 did, and then We Shall Talk No More. Mainly because I realized that my opinions of Daredevil Season 3 are apparently different than a lot of others, but I was not a fan. Making Kingpin into a relatable character, making the Prowler into an interesting character, all of that worked so well. And we haven't even talked about Aunt May, because that was like the dirty trick in the movie, because I'm such a big Lily Tomlin fan, and they brought Lily Tomlin in to do the voice of Aunt May. And seeing Aunt May having agency in the story was phenomenal. Realizing that she has some relationship with Doc Ock, that's going to be interesting, and one of the things I would like to see explored in future movies. I haven't given the spoiler alert yet because I haven't really talked about the film, so I am going to do the spoiler alert right now. If you don't want to be spoiled for Into the Spider-Verse, check out now. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's a very subtle thing, but there's a moment in the film where Peter Parker is fighting Doc Ock, and he makes an offhanded comment that your friends call you Doc Ock, and she says, no, my friends call me Liv, my enemies call me Doc Ock. And then when Doc Ock shows up at Aunt May's house, she calls her Liv. And it's one simple line of dialogue that says so much for the story, and just really brought everything to life in a very interesting way. Like, all of a sudden you just kind of realize, oh, so they have a history together and they used to be friends. It was such a subtle thing, and it was well done, and it made me it made the universe feel more lived in, which I enjoyed. And I really want more. It is rare that I go to a modern superhero film, and when it's over, I'm just like, that's it? That's all? No. Where's the rest? There's more, right? Right? I mean, of course, I think all of us did that with Infinity War, because you get to the end and snap and dust and ... and everybody's kind of like, you're ending there? Thanos will return. Wait, what? No. You're not ending what you are. Okay. Wow. But this was a different experience. Like, I I had already read a lot of the Miles Morales comics and loved the character. And the same for a lot of these. Hey ho, DC, not DC, Marvel Unlimited. If you're not a subscriber and you are looking for a way to catch up on comics and read a bunch of comics, it's a great way to do it. It's how I do it. But oh my goodness, it okay, the last thing that I really have to talk about before I can just completely let myself geek out, because I'll feel weird not mentioning this, is John Mulaney has been spoiled for me for all time. He has. Like, I'm sorry, Mr. Mulaney. I apologize. I am sorry, but you have to stop. You're your character from Big Head, and it's almost impossible for me to hear your voice, especially just hear your voice completely disconnected from a visual. Like, it's one thing when you get to see John Mulaney's face and you're like, oh, that's John Mulaney. But it's a very different thing because you're Andrew Glauberman. I'm sorry, you are. I really like Big Mouth, and you're such a big part of that. You're Andrew Glauberman, and I don't know if you'll ever not be Andrew Glauberman in my head. You're Andrew Glauberman. And that was the most distracting thing about the movie, is imagining under what circumstances Andrew Glauberman put on a pig spider costume to be in this movie. Just, I'm sorry, dude. You're I'm sorry. I try not to stereotype actors or lock them into one role, but your voice in my head is so distinctly Andrew Glauberman that it bled into this film and took me out of it a little bit. I just had to say that. I'm sorry. I feel like a bad person, but yeah. Okay, so much that I could talk about with this movie. It made me cry a couple times. Most prominently was the Stan Lee cameo. I got really misty eyed, and it did things to me that, yeah, like, I know we've lost Stan Lee and all that, and I thought I had processed and gone through my feels there, but apparently not. They're still there. They're pronounced, and Stan was such a fixture of my childhood and adulthood. I mean, I've grown up with Stan Lee. That, I don't know, it hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like most everything in this, the story made sense. The fact that they found a way to do all of these different Spider-Verse characters in one movie that made sense in the movie, that worked, that, like, the whole thing shouldn't have worked. I keep going back to that, but, like, it just shouldn't have worked. The animation style was so different and strange, and the characters were so comic booky. I mean, especially, the villains. Green Goblin and Kingpin, they should not have worked, but they did. I don't know. I have weird feels about so much. Okay, Penny Parker was also amazing, and I feel bad that I haven't mentioned her yet, but if I just went through and listed all of the characters that I enjoyed, I would be here all day. And yeah. So the fact that they cast two different, Peter Parker was voiced by Chris Pine, and Peter B. Parker was voiced by Jake Johnson. Kudos to both of them. I love that Oscar Isaac was in here playing interesting person number one. That that may be the greatest film role that he's ever had. Scorpion was unexpected as a villain, but worked. Just so much of this movie should not have worked. And I can't get over that. And I'm sorry I keep repeating it, but this gives me hope as a writer of weird fiction that there may be that the market may be finally coming around to my position that we need to keep fiction weird, because some of the movies that I have enjoyed the most lately have just been utterly bizarre. And this was definitely in that category of strange and bizarre and different. And I hope they do 1,000 more, and that they're also good. Because that's the biggest concern with a movie like this, right? Is it was so good that, well, the next movie we get will probably just be a Miles standalone movie unless they can find an excuse to bring back one or more of the other characters. It'll be interesting to see how Miles does on his own, just because so much of this movie is that glorious gift of the ensemble cast that worked really well together and played off each other. And if you get rid of that, what is that going to do for the story? You know, the writing is going to have to be different because you're not going to be able to do the slapstick. Though I do hope they were setting something up with Spider-Ham giving him the mallet. I want to see Miles use that at some point in the future. I don't know. This was such a bombastic way to do this that when I think about what the ensuing stories will probably be like, I'm hoping that they didn't set a bar so high with this film that it's difficult for other films to meet it. But I have faith. I never thought I would say that about Sony. Sony has rarely ever given me anything to have faith in. I mean, I saw Venom, and yeah, that's a movie that happened. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, if you haven't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, if I'm not the last person to have seen it and you haven't seen it, you just, even if you don't like superhero movies, action movies, or comic book movies, I think this is a movie you just need to watch just to look at the animation and consider it as film. They did so many interesting things, from the way they shot things, the angles, the way that they played with both cartoon and comic book physics to make this movie work and the story work. It is a thing of beauty that will probably get future episodes just as I think about things that happened in it. If you liked this episode, and the app that you're listening to me on allows you to rate either this episode or the podcast in general, please do so. That helps out a lot. That tells the algorithm to share me with more people. If you got $1 you can throw my way, in the show notes you'll see a link that says Anchor Community Support. If you click that, you can become a member at the $1, $5, or $10 levels. That will go a long way in helping me be able to continue doing all this stuff. If you don't have the money, trust me, I really understand that. See yesterday's episode. I really understand not having the cash. If you know anybody that you think would enjoy this podcast, please share it with them. That does help out a lot too. You can always, just retweet and reshare and all that stuff. That helps out a lot. If you want to follow me online, the best place to do it's on Twitter. I do a lot of chit chat on Twitter. I'm CE Dorset over there. You can join the Facebook group. You can find links to everything that I do over at projectshadow.com. I'm still working on the sci-fi story and working to get Mask of the Gods out, because I kind of sidetracked myself on that a little bit. So, anywho, thank you all so much for listening. It means the world to me. If you have anything that you would like to add, go to anchor.fm, download the Anchor app for your phone, and follow Project Shadow on there. You'll see a little button that says voice message. You can send up to a 1-minute voice message. It can be a question, a comment, or a topic you would like to hear discussed on the show. I used to get more of those, missed them, would like to get more in the future. Keep it clean so I can use it on the show, and I would love to, see what you all want me to talk about. Until next time, don't forget, have the fun. Bye.